I cannot for the life of me fully understand why there's somewhat of a stigma um, that people kind of get when it comes to mental health. Although this is National Mental Health Month, every day we see activity that support the need for engaging and seeking mental health treatment and information. And it's particularly true today because we're coming off of an incident on last night where 9 individuals were shot at a club, 3 of whom died. And there are all kind of scenarios and all kind of events that happen on the part of individuals from all walks of life. And the truth of the matter is, some of these, if not most of them, can be prevented with mental health treatment. But as I said, we somehow shy away from that. So today, this is a call to action, and I'm your host, Alex Habersham. And it is such a pleasure, and it is so timely for me to have as our guest today, Miss Myrana Craig. And before we do that, I'm also happy to know, or to let you all know, that I've got an intern. We got to deal with our young people. So, Miranda, you have the pleasure of being the first interviewee that also has Cameron Kennedy, who's a student at Georgia Tech, majoring in literature and media relations and what have you. And so, one thing that we need to do talking about mental health, and I know one thing that will help, particularly for young people and others, is mentoring. That will play a significant role in providing people an environment that they can understand and appreciate themselves. So I'm so happy that they have Miss Myrana. I get it right, whose middle name is Andrea Craig, to come on the show today and just talk about her business. She's a licensed professional counselor, and just talk about all the elements and the bases she touches as it relates to providing mental health services for our community. How you doing, Miss Craig?
Hello, Mr. Haversham. It is always a joy and a pleasure to speak with you, whether on camera or off. So I'm gonna just kind of tell you about myself. So I am Myrana Craig. I am a national certified licensed professional counselor in LPC, and I am a certified master addictions counselor. I am the director of enhanced behavioral health. It is located at 3083 Vineville Avenue in Macon, Georgia. I'm also the staff therapist for Wesleyan College, and I am on the treatment teams for Bibb County Accountability Court and treatment team for Peach County Accountability Court in Fort Valley. And so, absolutely, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm going to try to share with you where you can get more, where I get my own info as it relates to evidence-based practices for mental health treatment. And so that would be SAMHSA. So if you go to samhsa.gov, there's even a toolkit for Mental Health Awareness Month. The theme this year's overall theme, I'm going to share that mental health is essential for overall well being at every stage of life, regardless of age, background, or experience. Prioritizing mental health strengthens individuals, families, and communities. And so it looks like week one, we're actually on week three, but it looks like week one's theme was supporting older adults' mental health. Week two was building strong foundations for children's mental health. And this week's theme, hope and support for serious mental health
Hmm.
illness and serious emotional disturbances. I'm going to kind of touch on the messages related to that. So, serious mental illness is SMI. You may see SMI in some of the literature. And so that's what it means.
One
Yeah.
thing I really want you to address,
Yeah.
we're struggling. The community is struggling, and there are nonprofits, there are programs, there are initiatives, there are individuals, and what have you, who are really trying to
Right.
come up with some kind of meaningful and measurable approach to dealing with the problem with our young people, with some adults, and
Yeah.
with the people who are in the justice system.
Yeah.
So once you talk about the different areas, particularly addiction, I know I've heard you talk about that, and I know that you also are an addiction counselor.
Yeah.
But I would like at the end of this program for people not only to understand that everybody mostly is a candidate for some kind of mental health treatment,
Right.
but also that there are resources and programs and services available to try to deal with it. And then maybe we can come up with some possible suggestions on what we can do to address it in our community.
Yeah. I think number one, the first thing is, and you and I talked about this last week, your doctor, talking to your medical doctor. When you go to the doctor now, they are giving you screenings. Like, when you arrive, they have certain screenings. They're screening you for definitely anxiety and depression, and they're looking for that now. When you sit down, they give you a little tablet or something or a sheet of paper and they ask you these questions, and then the doctor comes in. And even like the pediatricians are doing that. Like, so one of the first places to start is your medical doctor, just really talking to them about what's going on with you. A lot of my clients, I get referrals from their medical doctor, like that through those screenings that they do, the doctor's office will refer. So always, start there. Um, Also, there is, the 988 or the crisis and access line, or I think they have actual therapists on the line that they can help direct you to, they have a directory, they can help direct you to local mental health professionals or treatment in your area. So that 988, that national hotline, that so as you remember 911 for certain emergencies, there's 988 for like mental health crisis. So that's actually a resource. And Googling GCAL, Georgia Crisis and Access Line, there will be therapists on the end of that can direct you. Let's see. So, what am I seeing? I think one of the biggest things that I would like to see change is actually families being able to advocate better for their family members that they suspect have a mental health issue, or because it's very difficult, though your family member actually has rights. And so that can make it difficult to actually get the care for your family member, because in a lot of instances, they need to be able to ask for that care. What I find though, if the client is in a severe mental health crisis, they're usually not going to ask for that care. And so that's very frustrating for me as a therapist as I'm trying to help families advocate for their family member.
One thing that I always say that irrespective of what's going on or what's going to go on, there are always early signs.
That's true.
In trying to discuss an approach to effectively dealing with some of these problems we have in our community and across the country, really.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that the needed client, the client in need.
Yeah.
I remember a long time ago. You don't remember this. You're too young, but I do. You know, they could just take people to Milledgeville. They could almost just
Right.
hook or without their permission. If you saw somebody had a crisis or
That's
had a
right.
problem, needed some kind of counseling. And what I'm trying to say in a rambling manner is like even for that situation that happened last night, there
Yeah.
had to be some indications.
Right.
Somebody must have seen something. So I'm wondering, I mean, I wish that somehow we could initiate some kind of um, system of, not beating anybody over the head, but just kind of encouraging and motivating them and influencing them
Right.
seek out some mental health. But
That's
and
right.
and I don't know. So what you think of some of the, if you can, off the top of your head, some of the contributing factors? I know that because we're trying to just impart information that
Right.
get the kind. What are some of the contributing factors?
Well, I think it's just we as a nation haven't done enough, especially as you described when we took away certain hospitals and the resources that we had in the past. And so now what are we seeing? A growing homeless community that probably a large percentage of them have some mental health issue. And so I feel like we're going to have to eventually either to me move back in that direction of we can't just have all these people on the
Mhm.
street, right? So we're going to have to move in that direction. And a lot of times, why are they on the street? It could be their family members just don't know how to navigate them and their illness that's not being treated. You know what I'm saying? So maybe they kind of give up or they don't feel safe, so they don't allow them in their homes and things like that. Um, that's a huge that's huge. I can't tell you how many times I talk to families and they allow the person maybe to live in their garage or something, but they can't enter the house, right? Actually, that could be a lucky person because they at least allow them on the family's property. But the other, I think, the family members themselves that would be the caregivers have mental health issues themselves. We know that certain mental health issues they run in families. So things like schizophrenia, things like bipolar, right? And when I think about bipolar and when you say the early signs, I think most bipolar teens, because of their impulsivity, they run away a lot, right? So if you have this child that's possibly running away a lot, that's we it's not something that we diagnose really before the age of 17 or 18, but that could be a sign. Just thinking of things off the top of my head that I want to share with everybody. So yeah, so what gets in the way? Just my client has rights, so it makes it harder for um, the families may be overwhelmed, in trying to navigate them and their mental health issues, or the families can be in denial. And a lot of times I see that as well. Because they actually have to wrap their head around the client's limitations. And that can be very difficult for families to do. And so I'll a lot of times have to kind of help the family see what the client's limitations are. They may say, well, they're just spoiled or they're just lazy and things like that, not really understanding kind of the cognitive deficits that are there.
And then I'm just wondering, and because I believe in freedom and I believe in rights, but there is such a need for,
Yeah.
and then referrals won't do it because it's a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people who have been to doctors now, they don't take their medicine. maybe one day, and then anybody who, you know, is privy to this conversation,
Yeah,
I'm sure that both you and I would welcome ideas and suggestions
that's
on
right.
how we can address this problem with mental health.
One of the things you just actually made me think about, that I would want families to know. Obviously, with certain mental health challenges, organization uh, is not something that the person would be capable of, right? So if I'm telling them to take a certain medication at a certain time each day, they don't have the organizational skills to actually, do that themselves. There so you want to pay attention to that, and really think about that with your family member, and talk to the doctor about a possible injectable option where they come in every 30 days and get an injection rather than, you expect them to actually take something in the pill form each day.
So I guess that we just gonna have to continue to pray about it as it relates to I'm serious, finding a
Well,
way because if in fact
yeah,
we could get these people, to some kind of treatment, to some kind of conversation, and some kind of program, and what proves it is that, over half of the people who are incarcerated, they ought
right,
to be in jail, they ought to be in a program. So we have
right.
to do something.
That's
There are
right.
some underlying factors that we are trying, in my opinion, address from the top down, but we need to, try to address these problems from the bottom up. And
Right.
I think that we need everybody to start thinking about this because the healthier the community is, of course, the more we prosper. So, what kind of ailments, scenarios, what other kind of scenarios do you treat?
So for me, I work in three settings. And so I have the private practice setting where we provide individual counseling, group counseling, family counseling, and classes such as anger management, parenting, substance abuse classes, and even DUI. So I work in that setting, but I also work on a college campus. So at Wesleyan college. I'm there probably about 19 hours a week seeing students. And so they may have a crisis. And so remember with that population, I think the thing that I didn't know prior to becoming a college counselor is, that's a very high risk population because they are at an age where they don't quite know or have their own coping ability or they're gaining it, but you have now these stressors, new stressors that your parents can't protect you from, the stressors of college. And so a lot of times, college students will experience some sort of crisis, or maybe there are things they're juggling. There's a family crisis, but now they have these new stressors of college life. So that's one thing that I think it's important that, families know that they really need to protect their college students' mental health and ask questions and check in, with them because that's a new stress. And most college campuses have therapists now affiliated with them. So encouraging them to use their student counseling services on their campus is really going to be crucial, especially, the first years as they're adjusting. And so also, in that college setting, you will sometimes be brought in an emergency type situation to figure out what that next level of care is for them as well. So I have that. So private practice, then college campus setting. Then my next setting is I'm in court maybe 2 to 3 times a week or so, because I do work with mental health court and two drug courts. And I do want to share what accountability courts are because most people in the community don't know what they are. They need to be supported. They um, and people just need to know in case they need them or their family members need them. But accountability courts are so in Georgia. If you go to the Council of Accountability Court Judges, CACJ, Google that, CACJ, they actually kind of govern these treatment courts that that kind are in most counties in Georgia. And so with mental health court, so if someone commits a crime that's not a violent crime, they can request to enter our court and they will be offered treatment instead of jail or prison. And so that will require them to meet with the judge a few times a month, and also do the mandatory treatment. So that may be counseling. In our area, it may involve a CSB like River Edge, or in Peach County, that would be Middle Flint. So they would use those services, and have case management by the court, where we have somebody that actually helps to identify what their need is and point them in the right direction with that. So that's mental health court. So you have a mental health issue and you have some charges, and you can ask to, come into be evaluated to come into the court. And then there's drug court. So drug court, you have some drug related charges, usually not anything in terms of like selling drugs, but some where it could be DUI or somehow drugs were related to your charges.
Is there a diagnostic test that one can take? I mean,
Mhm.
I know everybody think they got good sense and ain't crazy. But is there some kind, because I'm just thinking maybe that's one thing that we could do
Yeah,
if we could find an interesting way to get people to take this, answer these questions or take
right.
this survey. Is there such a thing as a diagnostic test that I can take to make sure, if I want to see if I'm, as confused as I think I am, then
Yes. So some of the things that I can think of off the top, questionnaires, that's what we call them. So they're questionnaires that, after you answer the questions, you tally up at the end your scores, and it can tell you whether or not you have a certain diagnosis and or the severity, right? So with anxiety, one that I can think of immediately would be the GAD-7, GAD-7. So usually, if you answer the questions on that GAD-7, at the end of that, it will kind of indicate minimal anxiety, which means none, mild anxiety, moderate anxiety, and severe anxiety with that one. With depression, there's a PHQ-9, so PHQ-9, and so it's a depression scale that ranges based off your answers from minimal depression to mild depression to moderate severe depression, and then severe depression. So that's something you can take on your own, just find it online. And then a trauma questionnaire for like PTSD and trauma, the International Trauma Questionnaire, which I believe the World Health Organization, actually, that's something they created. But the International Trauma Questionnaire is a good one to kind of look for whether you have PTSD or not, or some complex form of PTSD. So there are a host of assessments out there. Definitely a mental health provider can point you in the direction of, where they are. But definitely just talking to your medical doctor first, or locally in Middle Georgia, we have River Edge, like a CSB, so a community service board, like River Edge, walking in and asking to be evaluated. And I know in that Middle Flint is in that Peach County area as well. And I believe Houston has its own CSB. And a way to find the local community service board, so where you can find these mental health um, centers, community centers, the DBHDD, website DBHDD. If you type in community service boards, it can they'll pull up a map of the local mental health free or, not free, well, community mental health centers where they can get treatment and medication.
That is awesome. I got an idea. I knew I'd come up with something.
All right.
I think one approach could be
Yeah.
if we had a family, we could just say, somebody in the family say, let's take an anxiety test.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that would be great. Right.
Everybody, and that's one way, even you might
Yes.
suspect that there is an individual, but if you just make it look like a group session,
That's
and
right.
I mean, you could do it in organizations, if you're in a club, say, hey, let's see how many of us need help,
That's
and I
right.
think a group, and particularly if they know that it's not going to be shared, if it's only going to be shared with that person or a professional,
That's
that
right.
might be an approach.
I love
And
that. I think it's a great approach. And it normalized because what we want to do to get rid of the stigma is normalize these discussions, right? Normalize these conversations. So
right,
absolutely, let's take it. And to be honest with you, I have kind of in my family done something like that, as the mental health professional. They see me coming and they're like, okay, she's so I have actually done that, and it's we've had conversations and it just normalized us talking about
right,
this these subjects and people talking about how they feel more specifically with men. One of the things that I enjoy having male clients and talking to groups of men because what I tell people is men will tell you everything. They will tell you everything. They just won't tell you how they feel about everything. You know what I'm saying?
right,
But they will tell you, actually, if I had a group of men and a group of women, the men would actually tell me a lot of stuff, but if I in the women's group, they're going to tell me how they feel about those things. So
right.
definitely, do you know what I'm saying?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
I
So
do.
right. So just I think it's definitely important in families where there are men and boys, getting them to really talk about how they feel about what
Right,
happened. So yeah,
right.
they're going to tell me this happened, but how did you feel about that?
Right, right.
Yeah.
That is so outstanding. Well, this is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham, interviewing Mrs. Myrana Craig, Myrana Andrea Craig, who is a licensed professional counselor and is the owner of Enhanced Behavioral System Complex or whatever it's called, Enhanced Behavior.
Enhanced
Now,
behavioral health.
yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Uh, now, quickly give us how one may contact you.
Okay, great. So you can find enhanced behavioral health we have a website, so enhancedbehavioralhealth.com. Our office is located on Vineville Avenue in Macon. So it's 3083 Vineville Avenue. Phone number is 478-258-7798. And our email is info@enhancedbehavioralhealth.com.
This is a call to action. Thank you so much, Miss Craig, therapist Craig.
Thank
Uh,
you. I
yeah,
always enjoy you, Mr. Habersam.
yeah, you've really provided some very important information. And if you have some suggestion or some ideas, you can send me. Just send me an email at habersham7@gmail.com, and I'll get it to Miss Craig. And if we can come up with an initiative to improve the community, we'll do that. This is a
Yes.
call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham, and from Alex Habersham and Cameron Kennedy, the intern, with a call to action. Have a great day.
www.makingblackpages.com